structure. It would not land on the neighbor's land. And the very last piece there we recently added was garden sheds, lawn, small sheds. Could be all the way down to the 5-foot mark because it's such a small building and the snow wouldn't affect any neighbors or water runoff would. And the reason this all come into play is there's smaller lots in town that doesn't allow for people to have garages. And if we could reduce some of the setback requirements, some of these people that can't have garages could by doing this. So that's how these numbers, I derived them. Because currently it's 15 feet from side and rear lines. So we got some small lots where they come together in the back. There's a 30-foot swath on both property lines where people are doing absolutely nothing. They're setting buildings out, and it's some of them's just grown up where they're not doing anything whatsoever. Will that property?
Is it in this spot? Okay. I had one at one time. Thank you.
Is this pretty much consistent with what other towns have on there?
Some towns have no setbacks at all.
Have no setbacks?
No setbacks at all.
Is that right?
And I was doing code enforcement in the city of Augusta. Most of them were all 5 feet. The two other communities I currently do code enforcement at part-time, one is none and one is 10 feet and 20 feet, depending on the front or the sides. So it's pretty consistent with what a lot of other towns are doing. The goal was to make it so some of these smaller lots could get garages and stuff that they currently cannot get.
You know, a lot of it too, storage sheds. People that buy these prefab buildings, right now they can't put them within 15 feet of the property line. This allows them, like Dave said, in town lots to be able to put something a little bit closer.
Is there anything that says you have to have an agreement with your abutting landowners?
There currently is not. A couple people come in and they brought in a letter that an attorney drafted saying that they agreed to the setback to reduce the setbacks. And the town's attorney says you really can't do that because you're just allowing people to manipulate the current ordinance. So in order for us to get down to the 5 or 10 foot setbacks, we have to change the ordinance.
So this is a brainstorming session right now. We're trying to hammer this out. It's not a first reading, and if the council comes to a conclusion on where they want to do this, then we'll.
So, question. So this doesn't, the way you have it here, it doesn't affect the public right-of-way, meaning the front, I assume, of the lot.
It does not. Side and rear lines is what we're focusing on.
Okay.
And it's just for accessory structures, sheds, garages, pole barns, them type of structures. The homes and apartment buildings, that stuff still will need to meet the 15-foot setbacks that's currently in the ordinance.
If we accept this concept, it would go to a public reading, the first reading.
Yes.
I'd make a motion, we accept this and have a first reading of it.
Tom's got a question.
Oh,
So on the paper, it says current, and then it says proposed. Should I assume then the proposed does not replace the current?
It's an addition to.
So what would the new wording perhaps look like? Where would that fit in?
This would fit in right in the land use and the setbacks.
No, but here it says, you know, this is the current, it says all buildings, et cetera, 15 feet. And then if you take that out and put this in, you take a lot of other stuff out too.
No, I want to leave the other section in because that talks about your regular homes and additions and stuff. So I want to keep it for a principal structure, which is going to be a typical homes. That's going to remain at 15 feet, which is a top portion. And for then the accessory structures will be, this would be added into the setbacks.
So this would become part of a whole new wording. The whole thing is going to be changed with this as an addition to, and somewhere, so I guess I'd like to see what that.
We're going to have that for you when we do
Before
our
we have
first
a-
reading, and you know, we'll take a look at that, and if you decide you want to make some changes, then we'll have the first reading next time. We just want, this is just like I said, we're trying to hammer this out to get an idea of what the council's looking for, if they would, you know, buy into this and move it forward. We're in no rush to get this into place. This is going to be something we're going to be talking about over the next few meetings.
Because there are certain developments that have sideline setbacks that exceed these numbers. And you
Yes.
don't want
Well,
to interfere with those.
we're not gonna supersede their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, those are covenants in those parts.
Yeah. How many requests do we typically get for, probably none, they read this and they say we can't do it? Do we
I've
get
had people
complaints?
where we've turned down permits because of the setback requirements. They said,
Or-
well, if I have to put my shed in my back lawn, I don't want to do it.
How many would you say we get?
This summer alone, 3, 4, 5. One of them was a commercial business. Both commercial people wanted to build fairly large storage buildings back to back, and they wanted to go down to about 5 feet on each one of them. And we looked at this, and that's when they brought in the letter from the attorney saying they both agreed to it, but the town's attorney says we're allowing them to manipulate the ordinances, which we can't do. They said they could swap land if they wanted to, if they wanted to offset the property line so there's 15 feet one way or the other, and then set them back that way you're still meeting the ordinance. But they said to actually reduce the setbacks, we're allowing people to manipulate the ordinance.
Do we have a thought of what an accessory structure can be?
The building code defines it as sheds, garages, anything that's not livable space.
So and I'm just playing devil's advocate, I want to build in storage units, and I've got an office, and I'm going to have 20 storage units 5 feet from the neighbors. Is that an accessory, or is that not?
Depending on the size, it'll most likely go to planning board review, which they can have the setbacks and buffer yards and all that stuff by ordinance. So once you hit the 2,000 square feet, goes to planning board for approval, and that's where they apply them conditions.
So I could theoretically have a 20 by 10 building and have 10 of them strung up, and I'm still, I just, I'm
Yeah, sure, you probably could.
what could create hassles down the road and I can see with the way storage units are going up, Mike's gonna have some right next to our new piece of property. No, I'm not against it, I'm trying to think through possibilities.
So could you put this to paper and give us what it might look like?
Sure.
Thank you. Agreed?
I had Dana make a motion, but
You made a
nobody.
motion that we would do that?
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to the next item, item number 5, discuss and vote on newly proposed interlock dams agreement.
So this seems to be a moving target here, but I think we've got something that may work. Dawn's probably more equipped to talk about this than I am. The Dams Committee has been trying to hammer out a new agreement to get beyond the 1987 agreement. I believe you have the new one versus the old one. This whole process was sent down at Bernstein Shore to take a look at it, come up with some suggestions, and Phil Saucy, the lawyer down there, recommended that instead of this being an addition to the 87 agreement, that this would be a separate agreement altogether.
Each
And
permits for each of the units.
Oh, this is the giant.
Sorry.
so I just want to go over a couple of changes. One of the things that Phil is recommending is that there's an escape clause built into the new agreement. Basically, if the town of Oakland decides at some point that they no longer participate in this with a written letter to the committee, we can leave this agreement within 6 months. He's proposing a 99-year agreement on his interlocal agreement. But with a six-month escape clause, that shouldn't be a big issue. As you can see, there's now 5 towns included in this. Before there was, I think, three towns. It kind of changes the percentage of Oakland's commitment because we have more towns involved. Let's see if I can, I'll the changes. Those are basically the new arrangements on this. Don, have you got anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, just to reiterate a little bit about the 6-month termination if you want to get out. When a large part of this revision was more wording and making it up to date. But a major portion of it was, we had a potential that one of the original 3 towns was not going to pay their share. And one of the things we wanted to make sure in writing the revision was to make it more difficult for a town to say, well, we're part of the group, but we don't want to pay the full amount because we don't think it's worth it. So we played with those things, and we got to the point where we don't really have a clear understanding, and there is no clear understanding of what kind of an organization this is. The Dams Committee was created when a lot of the dams in the state became non-profitable to CMP and others. So CMP basically said, we don't want these dams anymore, we don't want to maintain them, we don't get enough from it, we're going to, I think, sell them to the highest bidder. And the dams in our area, the 3 dams, Wings Mill, Village Dam in Belgrade, and the Salmon Lake Dam, were 3 of those dams that were basically bought out. The gentleman who bought them, and I don't know all the history of it, this took place a long time ago, he wanted to donate them to the town of Belgrade, which he did. So the town of Belgrade owns the 3 dams, and the Inland Fish and Wildlife people and DEP came up with rules of how you had to maintain them. And most of the rules were about how high the lakes could get, how much water had to flow through the streams, and they came up with a very strict set of guidelines. So that Belgrade now owns them, and they're being told how they have to run them. And Belgrade said, we should have a committee of the 3 towns that are involved, well, more than 3. They want a committee of all the towns that come together. Sydney, Mount Vernon, I'm not sure if there was another one, probably maybe Smithfield. They were all offered to be part of this agreement. Well, only 3 said, yeah, we'll step up and do it. So you have Belgrade, Rome, and Oakland as the 3 towns that came together and says, we will manage the dams, we'll raise the money to keep them flowing, it's in our best interest. Last year, because we've had to raise assessments, because of the cost of the repairs of the dams, it becomes more and more each year, but if you want to have the lakes, you've got to have the dams. So most of the towns said, yeah, we'll come up with the money. One town says, well, we don't think you should get that much money. You don't need that much money. So there was a question of whether we were going to get the money, and what if we didn't? You know, we don't have any, we're by law in charge of them, but we don't have any. It's not like the school district where they can say, this is your bill, you pay it, you've got it. Or you get out of the district and you go through that long process. There's no way that a town can get out of this agreement without, under a legal manner. It's just, we quit, we're not going to be part of it anymore. So we're trying to make a revision that would keep everybody together. And then the lawyer says, well, they need a 6-month out, which sort of defeats the commitment. So, you know, we're really not crazy about it. I guess our hope is that all 5 towns will stay. But there are some people in one of the towns that's starting to say, yeah, I don't know, we don't benefit that much by the dams committee. Maybe we don't want to be in it. So we've tried to make it a little bit more structured. We've tried to make it a little more enforceable. The 5 towns right now get along very well. They're all cooperative. But that can change every 6 months if somebody decides that they no longer want to be part of it. So it's good that we've done this. We cleared it up a lot, but it doesn't really give us the clout, which we still wouldn't have had, even if we said that, you know, they got to pay. Say, oh, we're leaving. We're not. So that's sort of where we are. I think we would have rather not had this 6-month thing, a 99-year lease, but you can get out of it in 6 months. But we don't have a lot of choices. Does that summarize it, Gary? Does that go a little further?
I think you covered every base on it. We've been operating with this dams agreement now for as long as I know, and for a long time, and we haven't had any real issues with it. I think they have a lot of value because of the lakes these things fall apart, and we're gonna change the levels. And I support remaining a member of this, and basically I'm asking the council if they will support us being a signatory town again.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I'd make a motion, we accept this new agreement with, now, the changes that were recommended by the lawyer here, he's recommended that we put those in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The agreement would be with those changes, right? I would make a motion, we accept it, because it's getting the other towns involved, like you have this last year, is better for the town of Oakland. Our percentages that we have to pay went down because other towns are paying their fair share, so I think it's a good deal for us.
And you wouldn't believe the amount of time that some of the people who tend the dams, they're there every day, measuring the height, letting water out. The original bylaw said they were gonna get paid to do that, they were gonna get paid mileage. And we basically, nobody's charged for a long time, so we struck that right out of it. So it is all volunteer workers.
So is that your motion?
Yeah. I'd make a motion, we accept this new agreement with those recommended changes.
Second, all in favor?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next item up is discuss vote on town of Oakland and military dam policy.
Okay, so Sandy Swartz and I have been working very hard at this, and as you can see, I have a military abandonment policy, and we have an application form for possible participants. This is, we didn't reinvent the wheel on this. We've pulled from other states and looked at other policies, so this is something that's out there, and we just changed the names and added a few extra parts to it that would be more specific to the town of Oakland. Any comments or questions on that?
I mentioned to Gary, one question here is under the fourth bullet where it says all service members who are recognized on the banner must either live or have